Our clinician for the day is Mr. J.D. Walter. He is from New York now, from Philadelphia, lives in New York, tours all over the world, works with all kinds of people that you've heard of. And his first big break, I think, as far as I know, was being invited to sing in Dave Liebman's band. And so you were just singing lines like a horn player, right?
No, not at
How
all.
you were doing?
Actually, I called him for advice on a particular record label. I had one record under my belt, and there was record label interest, and so the smart thing to do is to call different people on these record labels and see what kind of deal they have, and do they like the A&R people, et cetera, et cetera. So I was investigating that, and he happened to be on this one particular label. So I called him up and I said, "Hey Dave, this is, I introduced myself, and this particular label's looking at me. Could you tell me, I know you've dealt with them before, could you tell me something about them?" And he, had his thing to say, and then he said, "By the way, I heard your first record, love to play with you sometime." I'm not going to waste any time with that. So I immediately pick up the phone, book a gig, and I called him back a day later, and he's like, "Oh, that was quick. All right, yeah, I can do it." And then we played some gigs together, and he said we should make a record together. Well, I'm not going to waste any time with that, and so we started, because this was, I guess it starts to date yourself. There was no email at the time, so so we were just mailing stuff in the mail, cassette tapes and music back and forth to each other, and looking at different charts. I was sending him stuff I wanted to do. He was sending me his original charts, and then I picked stuff of his that I liked. I wrote lyrics to it. There was one song that I did a wordless thing to of one of his tunes, just because it was, and then it was familially personal. So I didn't want to put anything on there. There was another actually crazy story of one of his songs that I said, "I want to do this song. It's a great, great song." And I said, "Oh, what's the story of this?" And he said, I said, "Because I'm going to get an idea for the lyrics." And he said, "Well, actually, somebody wanted me to endorse their mouthpiece, and I checked it out, and it was amazing. And I later found out this guy copied it from somebody. And so I told him I wasn't going to endorse his mouthpiece, and the guy started sending him dead fish in the mail with razor blades in it, and canceling gigs at Carnegie Hall, and taking letterheads of Dave's and writing nasty emails and using racial words and sending it to all these musicians all over the country. It was crazy. So that's what I have to deal with. That's the premise of the story. I have to write lyrics to his song. I'm like, how am I going to deal with that? But it worked out, and so we did a bunch of my tunes. Not a bunch. We did a couple of my tunes, a couple of my arrangements, three of his tunes, and then some arrangements where we just did the round robin thing, where I'd do something to it, I'd send it to the pianist sent it to Dave would send it back to me, and we just did. There were some crazier things that we did. And the reason why that was probably, and this is versus I've always had an aversion to this. This is versus hiring great people for your record, right? I always kind of believed that I should be recording with who I was playing with at the time. So my first record, there was a really nice piano player who's since come to some kind of fame. His name's Jean-Michel Pilk. I don't know if any of you guys know who he is. And Greg Hutchinson, I'd been working with for a bit. He was playing drums. And John Swana, who was with Benny Golson. He's a nice trumpet player. He's not doing too much anymore. And Steve Varner, just a bass player that I'd been playing with for a while. So I didn't hire any ringers for that record, because I didn't really believe in that whole, people would say to me at various clinics, "What do you think of Jane Monheit?" And I would say, "Well, personally, I think she's a fine pop singer," and they would say, "But she played with Christian McBride." And I'm like, "Well, she probably played with Christian McBride because the record label put her with Christian McBride," which is a difference. I like to separate myself. Not an egotistical thing, but I just think I have a problem with the industry in general, and just how the shameless capitalism works, and the whole pay-to-play thing, and the magazines. But so that's how. And when City says that's maybe like a start for my career, it really helped, because unbeknownst to me, I mean, I knew Dave was a great player and I was a fan, but he was really popular in Europe, more than I could ever know. And so once this album hit Europe, then people were like, "Oh, who's this singer working with Dave Liebman?" So then I started getting calls to go over, and subsequently started spending 6 to 8 months a year overseas, and now I don't out of choice, just because I don't want to be away that much. You know, maybe a couple weeks a month or something is fine with me, or a week, 10 days a month, but I'd rather be home. And be in New York too, you know, you start to miss New York. You know, why do you live in New York? You live in New York because it's an amazing scene, because you can see killing music any night of the week, and have sessions with people who are willing to. I mean, that's a big thing up there. You just call people up. You don't even know. They're amazing players. They know who you are. You know who they are. But you don't really know each other. You're going to their house. You know, they're coming to, you know, your house, and you're maybe reading new music that you've written. And so it's a really exciting scene as far as that goes. A little anecdote. When I first moved to New York, I needed a drummer for a gig, and I call this guy up, and the gig's like 3 weeks away, and really, really great drummer named Tom Rainey. I don't know if you've ever heard of Tom Rainey. He is playing with Tim Byrne, saxophonist, really great saxophonist, and a number of other different situations. But anyway, so I wanted to play with this guy, and I called him up at the time, and I said, "Can you make the gig?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, that's great." You know, so his gig's 3 weeks. He said, "It's great. I hardly have any work at all. You know, I only have a few gigs this month." And I said, "All right. So can we like get together and go over some of this music before the gig?" And he says, "Oh no, I have sessions every day." You know, so he maybe had 3 or 4 gigs that month, but he had sessions every day, multiple sessions, where he was getting together with different people. And I mean, because that's what it's about, you know, meeting new people, reading music. Because the New York guys can read, fly poop off a wall, right? You know, they can read like nobody's business, because they're looking for any edge that they can have to get ahead, and that means having your act together. And so it's just really a pleasure to even, you know, show up for a gig with some new chart that's never been played before, that's entailed, that's maybe road mappy, but has specific notes and odd time signatures. Throw it in front of these people, and they are on it, and they're just on it. And, you know, it's kind of a tough realization. You know, a lot of people come to New York, they're great players, but they have holes in some of their playing abilities, you know, whatever that may be. And it soon becomes evident pretty quickly that you have to fill those holes up if you want to be in competition, because there's somebody waiting to fill your spot, you know. And the thing is, well, what can I do better than the next guy? And if you can read better than the next guy, then you're probably going to start getting hired. You know, if you can, you know, these attention to small detail. I'm not talking about like the fundamentals of our axes or anything. But so anyway, that was like the beginning of my whole New York thing. And I was actually teaching, I was chairing a vocal jazz department in Philadelphia at the time, and Liebman said to me, "Get out of here." This was like the mid-'90s or late '90s. And he said, "Get out of here, you gotta get to New York." And I said, "Well, you know, I'm gonna starve." And he said, "Oh, I'll call every university there and get you a teaching job." And he did, and nobody was interested. And so I starved for a while, you know. But it just kind of makes you find out who you are, because that's all we're trying to do anyway, right? You know, we have our instruments and our craft, and it's pretty simple conceptually. Find out who you are and be that, right? But the process of doing that's not so simple, you know. And hopefully it's an evolving and ever-changing thing, you know, that we're not a static, "Oh, I've arrived, I'm here, this is what I do." No, hopefully it's a growth thing as well. That's what New York will make you do, because there's a million of you up there, you know. And that's not saying there's not room for you. It's just saying that you have to, you go up there and you really have to figure out what it is that is you, that makes, not necessarily, and sometimes I think it's premature. Like New York makes people say, "I gotta find something unique in what I do so I can stand out from other people." And I think it prematurely sometimes pushes people to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do or do in a natural process. But finding out who we are, I mean, you know, you're grown men, right? Why do you want to sound like another grown man or a grown woman, right? So it's great to transcribe whatever you're transcribing, checking out whoever you're checking out, being influenced by whoever you're being influenced by. But at some point, you're going to have to say to yourself, "Who am I?" And I mean, and all the greats really have gone through that. You know, Train and the Brecker brothers. I mean, a million people have gone through it, and they go through it through different things, like Slonimsky. Y'all hip to Slonimsky? Just something that's getting you out of okay, I did the Lester Young thing, I did the Coleman Hawkins thing, I did the, you know, I did the, all right, I got all these licks down, I can quote all these jazz standards, but is that really who I am? You know, how do I want to solo? And so, not only the Slimsky book I thought was helpful, I had a little more difficulty, not necessarily just with how it was written, but I didn't like that it was key specific. And there's a guitarist I really like, Wayne Krantz, who has a OS,
Players OS.
yeah, Players OS, Improviser's OS guide, and it's numbers, and I kind of dug that because that was applicable, at least to me, being a singer, that it, you know, key didn't matter necessarily, but it was just, you know, whatever modality we were dealing with, and so it was just numbers and reprogramming you and getting you involved with cells of notes, and so that was a real, you know, helpful thing for me, and getting to know Wayne, who's got a great philosophy about being his own person, you know. I mean, there's lots of people out here out there who have that, but, you know, just being friends with a lot of these people who are individualistic and have found their own road and really found their own voice, which is not something that comes overnight, you know. So, I was gonna wait and do some singing if some other singers came. I guess I could do something, but are there any like questions about the business or what's going on in New York or the scene?
I'd like to know, I mean, when you travel, I mean, did you do most of your touring in Europe, or would you say that, I mean, how's your time divided in terms of?
I'd say I do about 3 to 4 months a year now in Europe, and domestically, very little, maybe 3 weeks a year. It's just not economically feasible.
And when you travel, do you travel with your own group, or do you pick up?
All the above. Yeah. So I'll take maybe a drummer with me or a piano player with me. Depends what part of the world, because there's some parts of the world where certain instruments are weaker than others. You know, that may sound strange, but you go to Eastern Europe, drummers aren't as strong there for, you know, whatever reason. I mean, we could go into reasons why, but in Eastern Europe, they're just not as strong. So I make sure I take a drummer with me. Or there are some great strong drummers there, it's just they're not in abundance. So I'll make sure I take them with me. But you can find piano players, I found personally anyway, pretty much all over the world, right? Bass players, you know, that can be a regional thing too. So I've taken, and it depends what the bread is, you know. We're dealing with some tough economic times. So I do have some groups in other countries. I have a group in Finland that I work with, a B3 player and a drummer, and we do a lot of Scandinavian stuff, so that's great. Scandinavian festivals, Scandinavian tours, whatever, clubs, concert halls, etc. And then I have a group in Russia as well that I work with a lot. And I have a number of musicians that I'm familiar with that I've played with in a bunch of different other countries that I can call. You know.
And do you book your own gigs, or do you have a manager?
I have an agent, and he probably only books about 20% of what I do, and if that, and I book the rest myself. So it's about connections, getting to know people, and
That's like a non-exclusive arrangement, so in other words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it augments his thing too, because, you know, when you're touring, what you want to try and do is set up anchor gigs. You know, anchor gigs are the ones that are paying you the larger amounts of money, and then you fill in the gaps from those anchor gigs, right? With smaller gigs that maybe, you know, at least pay your hotel room, or depends what the deal is. You know, a lot of times when I'm on the road, the deal is they pay for my flight, they pay for my hotel, they might pay for a meal a day, or they might give me a per diem. I mean, it's all sorts of deals. You know, or we're not paying for any hotels, or you're gonna have to do that yourself, or we're paying your transportation, and I mean, it's all sorts of different deals, different situations. So you might not make any money on this particular gig because you've used that for lodging and food for the band. I mean, there's something that schools generally don't teach you. There are some books out there. There's a book by Hal Galper that I read that helped me early on, that I got I think in the mid-90s when I started touring more. It was called The Touring Musician, I think. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the book or not, but it helped me organize and get a good business ethic as far as, you know, I'm a musician, man, I'm lazy, right? I mean, I even practice lazy. But there's some things that have to be done, and there's some things that you just can't avoid. And they're not that difficult, you know, and just simple advice. Make all your calls, I mean, just simple things like make all your calls in the morning, and this is again before emails. And so you're just leaving messages, and then the afternoon is open to receive calls. Now, what I'm doing is about 3 days a week, I'm sending emails to people, I'm on the telephone, I'm going to the post office, I'm mailing packages, I'm on Skype, you know, making deals. It's about 3 days a week, maybe about 5 hours. I mean, that's 15 hours a week. That's a part-time job, right? But I find the benefits of this to be multiple-fold. One of them is, once you do have somebody who's doing the work for you, you know what to expect to a certain degree because you know what you can do. If they can't do it better than you, why do you have them in the first place, right? And you might get good at it. You know, I started to get good at it after a while, booking things, negotiating. Okay, I have these gigs lined up. Somebody called me from a concert hall. I don't want to deal with talking with this person because there's good money involved, perhaps. So I don't like to negotiate for myself when it comes to larger amounts of money. If it's a club and they say we got $500, you can come in, you can play here, we'll give you a place to stay. Easy negotiation, right? That's what we got. We got $500. We can pay you, right? But if it's something like, well, you know, our budget's between, you know, $200 and $3,500 for this particular thing, I just defer it to my agent. So I'm deferring to him for larger things, and I'm handling a bunch of the smaller stuff myself, which makes things easier for him because I'm basically bringing the work to him. He's not even looking for the work for me. And it's kind of a drag in the sense with my agent. I'm grateful to have one because they're really hard to find, you know, an agent. I remember being at an IAJE convention and being in a room full of agents and musicians and somebody saying, how many agents are looking for new talent? And no agents raised their hand. And they said, how many musicians are looking for an agent? Like all the hands went up, right? So I'm lucky, but I feel neglected. You know, like a child who I just want more attention. Give me more attention. But he's got Toots Thielman, he's got Odeon Pope, you know, he's got Airto, Flora Parim, Jeremy Pelt. Who else has he got? He's got some, you know, he's got some Kenny Werner, you know. So, I mean, I'm on the B list. I'm on his B level. But nonetheless, when I need him to do what I need him to do, he's there to do it for me.
And isn't it just easier? I mean, it's really hard to sell yourself. Isn't it better to have someone trying to
good to
sell
have that
you?
mouthpiece.
I mean, that always seems like it'd be a really difficult thing to do.
A lot of times I'll make the initial contact, or and then I'll defer it all to him. You know, I might send a package, or I might send a package to whomever to give to, because I work with some agents in other countries, and they might not even be able to get the gig, like a festival gig or something, a larger festival, maybe Pori or just, you know, North Sea or whatever it is, and I'll just say, deliver this package, and then everything in the package refers to contacting my agent. So if they're interested, they contact him. I'm not even involved, but I've taken the initiative to do it, whereas he might not even have sent the stuff there, you know, because he's got his hands full. But if someone's going to call him and say, we want to give you money, he's going to take it because he wants his percentage. You know?
And do you send things physically through the mail now, or are things done electronically, like press kits, stuff like that?
It's kind of like a newspaper to a degree. Everyone thought, well, the internet would be the death of the newspaper, but still people like to have that physical, tangible thing in their hands. I've definitely scaled down. You know, the old school thing was having this, like, 25, 30-page, you know, promo package that had all your reviews in it, because there weren't websites yet, right? Now I send a one-sheeter, which is folded nicely, and you've got my photo in the front, a quote, short bio, maybe a couple other photos, back of it, all contact information, and I might send a demo CD along and directing them to my website and my agent. So that's a simple package to send, you know, because it used to be a lot of money to be sending stuff, you know, around the country, the world, but when you can bring things down to a smaller scale, it makes things a lot easier. But yeah, the physical package, the electronic package, I'm doing all the above. And it's important to have that together, you know? I mean, a lot of people don't really realize that. Some people don't have to have it together, you know? Probably, you know, the better players don't have it they don't have to have it together as much. I'm talking maybe like if they're committed sidemen. They're just like, I want to be a sideman, I'm not interested in being a leader. people call me, I'm working, why do I need a website? You know, that whole thing. And, you know, those are the spoiled people, you know. That's not necessarily the norm. But, I mean, even, so this drummer I play with, Ari Honig, you know, he's gone over, people know who Ari is. He's a nice, really nice drummer who's kind of coming up in the whole, you know, he's on a couple of my records, and I've known him for a long time. He spent like $7,500 on his website, you know. And it looks ridiculous. It's like over the top, you know. It's, hey, check it out, you know. It's nothing I wouldn't say to him to his face, you know. We're really good friends. But it's kind of like silly, over the top. You can do a website yourself. You know, there are ways to do it yourself. Of course, you got time issues. You know, it's not like these things don't take time. They all start to take time after a while, right? You know, making sure your website is updated. Maybe you can't do it yourself and you're spending a lot less and somebody else is doing it, getting the content to them. How much of the website are you going to control yourself? Because you probably should control at least your dates to, you know, so you're not having to pay somebody each time that's going on. Do you have stuff on CD Baby? Do you have your songs registered with ASCAP or BMI or CSAC? Are you taking care of that business? You know, all these small things that don't seem to have anything to do with actual music, but add up in the long run. Because I look at, like, you know, probably Social Security isn't really going to do much for us when we retire. So I'm looking at original songs that I've written, make sure I'm getting them registered with CSAC, because that's my retirement. Hoping somebody, you know, likes one of my songs. And, you know, got this friend named Bob Duro, and we were just talking about it the other day. He wrote this song, I think in 1956, called Devil May Care. That was the name of the record, right? Well, people really only started playing and recording that tune, I think, maybe in the last 5, 6, 7 years. He wrote that in 1956, right? But he also wrote all the Schoolhouse Rock songs. You know those songs, Conjunction Junction, What's Your Function, I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill. So, you know, and I mean, he didn't really make much money off it, but he sang with Miles Davis on Sorcerer, and he sang on Blue Xmas. So there was something to this cat, even though he's kind of this quirky Arkansas Southern twang. You know that song on Sorcerer? Nothing like you has ever been seen before. You know, that's the cat. But, you know, there's something to him. You know, he's got... Oh, yeah? He's a beauty. He's one of my best. He's a really good friend of mine. And we've done a bunch of concerts together. I love him to death. He produced one of my records. But he's, you know, so he wrote all these Schoolhouse Rock songs, and he gets paid for it, and that's cool in the early 70s. But then it takes off, turns into a musical. It's on Broadway. High schools are doing Schoolhouse Rock the musical, you know. Suddenly, Bob has this little shack in Pennsylvania, and he doesn't feel like moving, so he just builds all around it and makes this giant house now. So he's got this great giant house, you know, and you know, he's like, yeah, I make, you know, nice sizable six-figure checks coming in yearly for Schoolhouse Rock, you know. So he's not talking about laying the foundation for our futures. What do we have? You know, do you really think of retirement as a musician? You know, when I'm in the grave, maybe, you know, because why are we doing what we do? Probably because we like to do it. Why would we want to stop doing what we're doing? You know, most players that you know, oh, so-and-so died. Well, he died and he was still playing.
Like
or
Bob
she was
still playing.
Bob Duro, he's 89, you know, and, you know, Ed Thigpen played right to the end. Everybody played right to the end, didn't they? You know, as far as I know, most people. You know, it's not like, well, I think I'm going to retire at 60 and, you know, get out of it and, you know, move to Florida and to Boca.
You talk a little, because that's such an important part, because I mean, that's the one way that musicians can, you know, actually make money, not performing.
Right.
You can just make money by opening your mailbox.
Right.
And if you write a song, can you just kind of step us through your procedure for copywriting and protecting or registering with the different collection agencies and stuff
Right.
like that? What's your procedure?
Now, I don't know exactly what the procedure is for ASCAP and BMI. I'm sure they're varied a little bit, but I bet they're the basic same thing. I'm with CSAC, and CSAC is a private organization that it's like an invitation only. And it's not like, you know, there was anything special I was doing. I just happened to sing on somebody's record, and I wasn't a member of ASCAP or BMI yet, which was foolish because I had original music out there that was being played. I could have been getting money. And they said, well, this is on a larger label. I was singing on this trumpet player named Sean Jones. He's the lead trumpet player for Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. So he was on Mack Avenue, which is one of the wealthiest independent record labels out there. I think, was it Stanley Clark, the guitarist, right? is on there. Danilo Perez is on there now. It's a growing label, you know. So I was doing a record for this label, big budget. You know, it's at Avatar in New York, one of the biggest studios. So they're like, look, if you got an original song on here, we want you to be hooked up with, you know, are you with ASCAP or BMI? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm with ASCAP. And they're like, well, switch. And I'm like, okay, we'll get you with CSAC. And so, because they said they take care of business. So so I register with them. And I register the rest of my songs, original songs with them. And there's, I think, a grandfathering of 3 years. So any song that was played on the radio of mine for 3 years before that registering with CSAC, I also got money for it. So I register my songs with them, and it's kind of like, I don't know again how ASCAP and BMI do it, but it's basically like they're binary, right? You know, we're digital. It's a digital age, so every song that's on a CD is basically binary information. So they can monitor the radio stations across the United States, as far as I know. With this, you got a binary code on your song. Each song is definitely individual. You know, there's no two songs that have the same genetic binary code, right? So they're able to monitor the radios, etc., and keep track of how many times your song's been played. And then what you must do is form a publishing company, and you're the artist and you're the publisher. So you have to register as both. It's two separate entities. You're getting a check for being the publishing company and as the artist who wrote the song. So you register twice with them. And because you could put your song out with another publishing company. There are publishing companies who, what are their functions? Their functions are perhaps to try and get their songs heard on television, radio, movies, you know, movie placement, which is another great thing. There are agents out there, that's all they do. They want original music that if, you know, depending on what genre of music you play, it might be appropriate for a movie or a soundtrack or a television show. You go to these types of agents and they're shopping. They want to sell your stuff. You know, they want to make money. Oh, we've got this crime thing, and oh, I've got this kind of West Coast jazz tune, you know, Private Eye, and you know, you know, whatever it is, some smooth, slick thing. It sounds kind of cool. All right, we want to use that for this show. You're getting money, right? So you can get money in multiple ways, not only from radio play, but you can get money from contacting people who deal specifically with
airlines.
Yeah.
I know somebody that is pushing her music to all the airlines, and they're playing it.
Yeah, does she have an agent?
Radio. She's doing it herself.
She's doing it herself? I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do that
either,
myself.
But boy, she does.
Yeah.
She's got her stuff picked up by 3 airlines in the last month.
That's great.
And it's
Oh,
not even that
are you talking
great.
about
like, it's
to
just
play on the
okay.
plane?
I mean, it's, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just okay.
Right.
It's not like anything
Mhm.
fantastic. It's not going to go down in the history books as, you know, some seminal thing. I can
But her
That's
name's
what
being
the
mentioned.
publishing companies are for. I mean, they're the ones that usually get those.
Well,
She does herself, that's great.
She is her own.
Yeah, well, that's really,
Yeah.
that's great.
And you know what she did? I'll tell you what she did. I don't mean to
That's
interrupt,
all right.
but real quick, they had a thing on Sonic Bids where they were soliciting for people to get the stuff played on the airline radio, digital, you know, headphones. And she went through the Sonic Bids and got rejected. So she decided to figure out who was pushing that to Sonic Bids, and she contacted them directly. And she went and had a meeting with them, she gave them her stuff, and they put her on the freaking airline radio.
Cindy, is this somebody we know?
No, just nobody you know. Nobody knows her, she's a Houston, she's a singer in Houston, friend of mine.
So, you know, that wouldn't necessarily work for me. I mean, just because of the music that I make, you know,
Well, I don't know, you'd be surprised. They have some progressive, they have all different, like, types of, you
Right.
know, you fly.
I do fly. I would never listen to that music. But, you know, because I'm into active listening, and so, I mean, this is definitely something else to take into consideration as far as, you know, career paths are concerned. And this is something as a singer, it's specifically that, you know, I decided I wasn't really interested in making wine and cheese music. You know, I didn't want somebody to be able to put my music on at a party. You know, it's to listen to. And so, You know, we have choices what we're going to do with the records we make, and we might think of the ramifications or the promotion possibilities of those records when we make them. What could this be? Of course, you know, that may be thinking a little too far ahead. I just love making music. Let's make a record. This is the music that I want to make. There are some people who are thinking, let's make this record, and I'm kind of digging, let's go for a concept record. And then this concept can also actually fall into this area and this area and this area. You have people making, well, let's do the music of Nirvana, and we're going to make this record, but we're going to make it, or like the tune we did the Brad Mehldau Black Hole Sun thing, right? And the record labels are pushing this. You know, they want that because they're trying to grow their demographics. This is the problem I have with record labels. You know, it's about money. It's called the music business, right? You know, they have to be making money in order for you to make money if you're with a record label. Now, I've dealt with record labels. I've been on a number of minor record labels. I've been approached by majors. I've been turned down by majors. I've turned down majors. I've incorporated myself in the last couple years. I formed my own LLC. I don't have a buyback. Everyone knows what a buyback is. When you get signed to a record label, you get maybe a couple hundred free, and then you are buying from the company store to sell off the bandstand. So you're paying, you know, potentially $7, $8 for a CD that you're going to sell for maybe 15, maybe 12. So how much are you going to make? You know, do the math. But you do it yourself if you're doing all right. And I'm selling a few thousand CDs a year. I'm manufacturing 2 of them myself. The rest are buybacks. I've actually bought one of them back. But I'm manufacturing them myself. It costs about $1.30 maybe. If you do quantities of 1,000, that makes sense. And now you're getting all the money, basically. You know, your buyback is $1.30 versus $7 or $8. You know, I mean, that's crazy from my vantage point. I'm not lugging a suitcase full of CDs overseas to make, you know, $7 per CD. No, I want it all. You know, I'm not greedy. I just want to eat. And if I can make more money doing it myself, and I am selling CDs, and if I'm selling 40 to 50 CDs a concert, that's fine. I'm doing well. You know, if I'm playing 6 nights a week, that's fine. You know, with me to go on the road. So I'm making, you know, $13.80 a CD or more, you know, depending on what it is. And so it's just another decision that I made for myself. Now there's some record labels that are coming to check me out at this gig I have coming up in a few weeks in New York. I'm not really that excited about it. I don't want these people, even the emails that I got from them, from my agent, make sure he does enough original material on the first, here we go, tell me what to do again, right? You know, I don't want that, you know. It's a personal choice. Some people are okay with it, and some people are like, you're a fool. All right, well, I'm a fool, but you got an $8 buyback, and I don't, and I'm selling as many CDs as you are. And so, I don't know, you know. But maybe in the long run, it's better for them. Or maybe my process is just going to be slower to get known, you know. But if we don't care about that, you know, it depends what our priorities are. Are we interested in the money? Are we interested in quick fame? Are we interested in, you know, what are our priorities? Or are we just going to say, because this is the thing. I mean, were people saying to Picasso, not that I'm relating myself to it, but I just a relation to art, right? Were people saying to Picasso, man, put a little more blue in there, right? Put a little more blue in there, I think you'll sell better, right? Or, you know, were people saying to Bach, I think you know, maybe a little more tricky melismatic stuff and maybe a little more trills and people will be buying your stuff. No, I mean, not that of course he was working for the church, but I'm just saying, in art, why would people meddle with what you do? Because they think they have a vision. Whoever said there was money in jazz, you know? I mean, all the greats didn't make money. It's only when you start to have corporate America, and this is the whole thing of capitalism. If you're not going to, I mean, if you're a shareholder in the company, what do you want to have happen? You want to have big dividends. How are you going to get big dividends? I don't know. Hire somebody who's going to get it. You get some. All right, so let's put out something that more people can understand and call it jazz, right? Which is a bad name anyway, right? So you get something like, and she's a sweetheart, and I know her personally. You get Norah Jones, and it's called jazz. And now I travel around the world, and someone says, I'm a jazz singer. Who are you into? I'm into Norah Jones. I'm going, okay, well, you know, great. Or I'm in, you know, Kenny G. Is that jazz? You know, I mean, what is jazz anyway? I mean, it's a bad word, right? But you got marketers putting stuff out under the auspice of something that it's not really. You know, was that a sentence? But
Close enough.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying, is that we get to decide what it is that we want to do, and we don't necessarily have to do what we do and have it dictated by the industry. And people make it work. There's a lot of people who make it work. And if you're content with what you do and you're able to survive, you know, I think that's the most important thing, to be a craftsman and to do. Go ahead.
I just want to ask you about, like, do you actively sit down at the beginning of every year and really strategize about who you want to be or what your career decisions are, or does stuff just happen, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah,
Are
it's
you
a com-
very strategically planning your career?
I already told you I'm lazy. Strategic, man, I'm just trying to book gigs. I mean, it's just like I am, you know, when I get back to New York next week, there will be 3 days where I'm on the horn. I make it, even here on this trip, you know, I booked some stuff. I booked a trip to India. I booked some gigs in Europe. I booked some stuff in New York, solidifying players I'm using. Doesn't matter where you are, you still got to take care of the business, you know. No one's going to do that for you. And the bad cycle that I was getting in a while was I would go out for I would book really hard and I would work like 4 or 5 months. And I'd get back from tour and I would have nothing for like 3 or 4 months. And I'd work hard in that 3 or 4 months to book, and I'd book and I'd work 3 or 4 months, and then I would have nothing, you know. So then I had to start getting smarter about it. How can I, you know, be a little bit more consistent about it? Now, just because you're lazy doesn't mean you can't be organized, you know. And I am organized, and I have it together on a number of levels. Even the way I practice is lazy. I know what I need to do, it's just I'm not doing today I worked on triplets at a quarter note equals, you know, 174 for, you know, then I went to the 8, and now the next day I increased that by, I'm not doing that, you know, that's not happening. But I know there are certain concepts I need to work on musically. I'm doing it, I'm just having fun doing it. And I'm practicing a lot, maybe 6, 7 hours a day. That's fun for me, you know, I want to play, I want to practice. And that might even include bringing, you know, people coming over to the crib and working on things and reading music. And every week there's 2 or 3 people who are coming over to my house, or I'm going to their house, because I want to meet new people. I want to see new perspectives. I want to learn, you know. And the best place to learn, I found when I was young, was always hire people who are better than you, right? And this was like from a young age, you know, when I was like 13, 14 years old. I'm like, wow, there are these like older cats and they're amazing, and I'd say I want to play with them, so I would hire them. They needed more money than the gig paid. Well, I'm just giving them my bread, right? And I'm learning. And I get to New York, I'm hiring people who are better than I am, and people who are better than I am. I'm just constantly surrounding myself with people. You're a product of your environment. You want to be a good criminal, go hang out with criminals, right? You want to be a good baker, hang out with bakers. You want to be a great musician, hang out with great, not only, I mean, it's a brainwashing thing to some degree, right? Listen to good music, play good music. You know, be involved with great players. This stuff you start to see what it is, what it's about, and it's always been that way for me. I mean, there's some people who I've been intimidated by, and then I played with them, and I'm like, whatever. They do whatever they do. I feel secure with what I'm doing. Or there have been people, you know, people who I've loved what they do, and I hire them, and they're absolutely wrong for me to play with. You know, it doesn't work out. Just because you love what somebody does doesn't mean what you do is going to work with them, right? You know, and that's a lesson to learn too. And there's lots of lessons. You know, there's a million lessons to learn.
Just how far in advance do you normally book your tours or gigs?
I don't really go more than a year generally. You know, I know a lot of people.
In a year, right now, you're thinking about what you're going to be doing. I mean, you're trying to book what you're.
I know I'm in Europe right now, at least 4 times next spring. You know, next winter, starting like January, February, February, March, April. I think I'm
and
there.
that's normally what the people that book gigs. I mean, they're normally thinking that way. That
Yeah,
they
especially
start thinking
festivals.
about the next year.
Especially festivals.
Especially festivals.
Yeah, because you know, it's the worst thing to like pick up a last minute tour and to see that there's some festivals that you're going right by and you try and get in, and then you're getting lowballed on the money because they're like, well, we do have a couple spots, but our budgets are gone, you know. And so, you know, these strategies of booking gigs and tours, you know, booking, as I said, anchor dates, and anchor dates also can constitute university stuff. Because if you have an education and you're able to teach, then universities have money, right? So that's something that I frequently, you know, sometimes, you know, to some degree. But my European travels, you know, I'm teaching at Sibelius Conservatory, I'm teaching at the Moscow Consort, I'm teaching at right now I just got a new gig teaching at the Prince Claus Conservatory in the Netherlands 4 times a year. I teach at Jazz de Palau in Valencia, you know, I mean, just, and then domestically, you know, I'm an alma mater of North Texas, so, but I've gone back and taught there a few times, just gone through town touring, right? Helps you out, you know, it's an anchor gig because there's some money there. Do a concert and do a clinic at the school, man, it can be quite nice. It can be like almost you know, festival money. But any other questions?
You gonna sing for us?
Yeah, just gonna do some of that.
You tell us a little bit about your setup.
Sure. I first started, you know, the whole evolution of what I was doing was I was a bebop freak for a long time. You know, I went through the same evolution that I think is very healthy for anybody studying jazz. You know, I'm going way back, right? I'm doing the, you know, checking out the stride stuff, you know, things turn into boogie woogie. I'm checking out, you know, all the early players, and Lester Young and Coleman Hawkins and Dexter Gordon, but then also the singers, you know, and Babs Gonzalez and Mary Lou, and you know, all the old cats. And so I'm King Pleasure, and you know, Joe Williams, whatever it is. I'm just the standard stuff. So I'm a bebop singer, and I'm doing that for a long time. You know, maybe like age 13 to 24, 25, and then I get bored. And I want something else, and I'm hearing some different things, and I'm wanting to go to some different places. So then I got a reverb unit, right? I bought a sound system for myself. And these are just a few pedals that I have. And I'm also now working with software, with Ableton Live. Is anybody familiar with Ableton Live? Yeah, it's some really good software that a lot of people are using now on the road. I work with a few instrumentalists who just take this, who are into electronica, who just take this out on the road. I think Seamus Blake, does anybody know Seamus Blake? I work with Seamus, and he's doing complete Ableton right now. And basically, you're just able to program all your effects through this software and have a MIDI pedal board that's calling all that information up, which is a lot less gear, you know, to carry around. You got your computer, you got your MIDI FireWire, you got a little MIDI FireWire box, and you got this MIDI control pedal board. So, but anyway, and then as I said, I have some other pedals that I have, but you know, you only carry so much. So I got like a reverb unit. I am using a microverb. I usually carry just a nanoverb, Lisa's nanoverb, but it blew up in Mexico. Be careful when you're plugging things in other countries and they don't have the outlets marked as 220, or you know, and things blow up. So, and then I carry a 31 band graphic EQ, not so much for like a place like this, but for like concert halls. When I'm traveling around the world, it's like, you know, that whole saying of, you know, you work your whole life to get to Carnegie Hall, and you get there and the acoustics suck, right? And so many times concert halls, man, that's not where jazz was really designed to be played, in these large venues. And so you're dealing with bass feedback into the piano, mics, and all sorts of things. So I'm able to dial directly. I want to be in control of my sound. I don't want to be the proverbial singer, not to bash singers, but it's a common occurrence. I don't know what I want, it just doesn't sound right, and you know. No, and know what you want. Work with the equipment and be familiar with it. So when you get to the gig, and maybe you're not carrying your own equipment, you're able to say to the sound man, take down the mids, bring up the highs a little bit, and level off the, you know, whatever it is that you want, you know, for the singers that are in here. And in general, you know, we should be knowing what's going on with sound equipment. You know, everybody should. I was working with a guitarist, and I'm getting feedback somewhere, and he's just like, oh, that's at 250K. oh, okay, all right, go right over 250K. I mean, the guy knew what all his frequencies, and he just knew it. It was great playing with him. But it's just trial and error for me because I'm not that good. But I understand how to dial things in and out, and it's just a trial and error. I'm pulling something out, is that feeding back? So I'm carrying that. I'm going through a Mackie mixing board, and I'm just using my auxiliary sends and returns. I use my one set of auxiliary sends and returns to go to my reverb, so it's not affecting what's going on with my pedals. And I'm just carrying with me an octave pedal, a chorus pedal, and a loop station. Now again, I was getting into that software with Ableton Live, and they have loop stuff with that, but the problem is you can't see what mode you're in when you're using any of those MIDI pedal boards. With this, and is everyone familiar with the loop station? Loop stations? The general concept is you press record, and there's a button that lets you know you're in record mode. You press it again, it's play mode. There's a different color LED light that says you're in this play mode, which you're not recording when you're singing. You press it again, you're in overdub mode, right? So it's letting you know what mode you're in. But if you just have a MIDI pedal board, there's just one light. So you don't know what mode you're in. You'd have to be looking at a computer. I don't want to look at a computer. So I'm still carrying around this RC20, this Boss. And I like the Boss quite a bit. And the softer pedal type of thing. And I'm using all Boss pedals actually right here. And I have some other Boss pedals that at home that are doing some different things, some different filters, some different octave effects that kind of give me like, y'all to Mooger Fooger products. Mooger Fooger is kind of like, how would you describe that, Brian? They're just kind of like, it's modulating frequencies. It's messing with your frequencies as a bass player and just kind of getting some cool, you know what I'm talking about. But like a lot of the electric jazz bass players are using these sounds. All right, this Carvin is really noisy, so you'll have to forgive the noise. It's really noisy.
Don 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 dee do dee don 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 don. Ni so le da da do dee da dee ba do be de do sa no no go dee dee go do de de so le bo vi di vi va be do ba do be de go ba di bo ba da bong dio.
Now, there's a number of things that I like to use this. I think it's a very helpful tool, the loop station. But before I even get into that and the fun that I have with that, I want to talk a little bit just for a second about how I learn tunes, because this is like a ubiquitous thing I think for everybody. It's helpful for anybody. We get this disconnect sometimes between what's up here and what's down here or here or here. And so singing, whether you have a good voice or not, isn't a bad idea. Because when you sing something, you mean to sing that note, right? Versus seeing it change on a page and you go, well, I know I can play these notes, so there they are, right? These are hard changes, but I know I can play these notes, and I play these notes, and I play these notes. But it doesn't mean anything, right? Because what we're trying to get to essentially is intention. I want to mean what I'm saying. And so there's certain ways that I have found of learning tunes, not just for singers that I teach, but also some instrumentalists who have come to me and they're like the typical overachiever, and they've got like 5 transcription books of solos they've transcribed, and they can, they know any solo that you can think of, and yet they pick up their axe, they start playing, and they don't mean a thing. There's just nothing there. It's just empty. It's a vacuous void. Because there's a disconnect between here and what they're doing. So how do we get that? And I found for those instrumentalists, it's been getting in touch with the voice to a degree. And you find, for non-wind instruments, it's great. You find a lot of guitar players who are singing along with what they're doing, right? Piano players, Jarrett and Kurt Rosenwinkel's singing along. A lot of people are singing along with what they're doing, if they can, right? But it's the way we learn songs, or I found this to be. And this, for those of you who are more advanced, even this simple concept might have some advantages for you. Now let's just take a simple song that we know, everybody in here knows. When we take a look at, all the things you are, or like Autumn Leaves, We take a look at Autumn Leaves, and aside from the pickup, the relationship between the bass and the melody of Autumn Leaves is what in the first measure? What's that?
The third.
What kind of third?
Minor.
Okay, and now we go to the next measure, not with the, let's skip a measure because we got some, passing tones, and what's going on there? Relationship. Everyone able to follow the song in their head?
Third again.
See the changes? Third. What kind of third?
Major third.
Okay, skip a measure, next measure, relationship, root, melody.
Minor third.
Okay, so we can go through this whole song, third, 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 third. And even the measures that have passing tones in them, there's going to be a third in there. We can go to All the Things You Are, it's going to be like thirds almost throughout the whole tune, right? Now this happens in a lot of tunes, not every tune, of course. Especially the more modern tunes, we're getting into more color tones, etc., etc. But my point is that if we understand the relationship between root and melody, we can understand quite a bit about the tune. If I understand the relationship between root and melody of All the Things You Are or Autumn Leaves, I basically have a general understanding of the sonority of every chord that's going by. And what I mean by sonority is major sonority or minor sonority. Of course, we have the half diminished, we have the minor involved in that. We have major 7, we have dominant 7 in the major, and other chords as well. But we have a general idea. Now, how do we get that? The first thing I'm doing is I'm going to the piano with no skill, and I'm pounding out the melody. One finger. I'm learning the melody with one finger. And then I'm learning and memorizing the roots of the whole song. Doesn't matter what song this is. This may sound like really simple stuff, but this next step was the essential thing in being able to digest tunes and knowing the landscapes, right? Owning tunes, right? We want to own these tunes. We want these tunes to be our slaves. We want these tunes to be landscapes. I say to somebody, what do you know about this tune? Especially singers, Again, don't mean to pick on them, but I know the melody, and I know the words, and I'm like, you don't really know do you know the changes? No, not really. Well, then why do you have a right to do anything with this tune? Why do you have a right to improvise over this tune? Or, you're singing with musicians and you want to be treated like an equal. Well, you should be learning the information the same way as they are. So, we want to own these tunes. And this next vital step is to be able to play the melody and sing the roots at the same time. Sounds easy, but it's really not that easy, to play the melody and to sing the roots at the same time, okay? Sounds pretty simple, but it's really not, okay? Now this is just my approach for learning songs. All right, now we can take that and we can go through then, and we can definitely go. All right, now I know at least the roots.
Do de de so so de de so do de de so don do de do don do so de do de so din ba da do sin di do da so din don e se do do.
Right, and we can learn our tunes where we were. Now, of course, the next step, of course, we want to do is go
do go do be do ba da be do ba da be do ba va do go da be do ba ga va bo do be di ba bo.
And then down, up and down, right? Right, that type of thing. We want to make sure that we own the song. And the next thing that I'd like to do, and with singers, but I think this applies to everybody, especially drummers, because what drummers need to understand is the form of these songs, right? And it was like a revelation when I was playing drums, like, oh, when I solo, I follow the form. Okay, and I was a kid, right? But I just thought, oh, it's drum solo time. Okay, here I go. I'm doing my thing. Okay, you guys ready? 1, 2, 3. No, there's you follow the form. But how are you playing the tune if you don't know the melody of the song? As a drummer, why would you play the tune if you don't know the melody, and at least the form? That's a starting point. You got to know the melody of what's happening. So this next step of the learning process for me is essential. Now drummers, they have an advantage. And this is like applying across the board. We have to understand, and I'm going to ask a couple questions. They might seem like silly, pedantic questions, but what's swinging? Now some of y'all are going to be teaching someday, and your students are going to ask you these questions. And you're studying jazz, and I'm asking you, what is swing?
You know? You got a student, you got a daughter, son, whatever. What's swing? Can anybody just tell me what swing is? What is swinging? What's that? Yeah, okay, well, you know, talk Fahrenheit, talk centigrade, use language I can comprehend, tell me something else. What is swinging? I mean, I know you got an idea.
A heightened rhythmic awareness. I mean,
You know, because the thing is this, there is no is, right? Jazz is not something. Swing is not something. Swing appears to be, right now, something, whatever that is, but nothing is something. So I'm not asking for a definitive, you know, answer to this question. I'm wanting to know what your impressions are, because swing is not something. Swing appears to be this. And this is how I like to do it, which is not the same as this person, which is not the same as this person. It's like, you know, taking a subject like Christianity. Well, how many types of Christianity are there? Probably as many types as there are Christians, right? Because everyone's got this little change in how they think about things. And this isn't like a dig at the religion, but, you know, this is like human nature. Everyone, you know, maybe moral, but they've all got these little different things. Well, it's okay to run this light. Or it's, you know, whatever, but they're still a decent person, right? Whatever it is. So I'm just saying, like, swing, give me a definition of swing.
Okay, maybe, I mean, this is not right now, but maybe you could say swing is not necessarily like a set rhythm, but maybe a collection of rhythms borrowed from European martial traditions and fused with West African traditions using syncopation.
Okay.
But I mean, the best way that I would teach somebody was just like to tell them that and then give them an example. Because I can't, I mean, I'm not a drummer, so I can't.
Right.
Not
And,
this moment.
you know, it's kind of like one of those things. It's kind of like explaining balance on a bicycle, right? You go, how do you ride a bike? Well, you get on there and you kind of, no, you got to get on the bike, right?
Yeah.
You know? I don't know if I would agree or disagree with your definition. You know, my vantage point, and again, everyone has different vantage points on what this music is. You know, my vantage point is we're dealing with African-American rhythmic sensibilities mixed with European harmonic traditions, and even some harmonic traditions from Africa, you know, blue notes, etc., whatever. I mean, who cares? Because to some degree, yes, it's important to know the history of what's going on, but, you know, when you said, you know, it's mixed with, what were you saying, rhythmically, what was coming from Europe?
Not more like just marching band.
Marching band stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, American marching band stuff too. I mean.
Right. And someone's got another idea of swing, right? We know classically how it's written, right? When it's written on a board, what does it look like? If we're writing swing out on the board.
Well, I mean, do you want the triplets or do you want the 2/4 time?
Well, you got triplets, right? With the middle one missing,
Right.
or you got the dotted,
Right.
right? And again, it's none of those, right?
Right.
It's none of those. It's because those are dots on a piece of paper. So we got different kinds of swing. We got bouncy swing. We got more legato swing. We got people who are swinging harder. What does swinging harder mean? What does it mean? Someone says, "Oh man, that guy really swings hard," or "That girl swings hard." What does that mean?
Accentuating the beats.
Okay, well that even goes with the swing thing. I like this one, digging in a little bit more. Well, what does that mean?
Yes.
It's intense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Intent or intent.
Can I,
You know-
can I
Sure.
attempt to answer? Because I mean, not that, you know, like you say, it's an individual thing. But
Yeah.
to me, first of all, swing doesn't pertain to any particular music, like swing music. I
Right.
mean, any kind of music can swing.
Mhm.
Hip hop music can swing. Latin music can swing. Bach, you know, a Bach fugue can swing if you play it. So to me, it's playing with a heightened sensitivity to time or the pulse of the music. And that's, to me, is what swing is.
Right. And again, that's unanswered, right? That's not the definitive answer, and that's unanswered. And it's a good answer, but they're all good answers. You know, you had some good answers. And
But my answer was the best.
it was. But I like to think, you know, I mean, generally when we say, like someone says, Dexter Gordon swings really hard, I'm thinking Dexter Gordon is laying back behind the beat with that eighth note feel with consistency further than most people would, right? That's my vantage point of swinging harder, right? it doesn't necessarily mean it's better than someone that's not swinging as hard, right? We're not saying that one is better than the other, but I'm just trying to get into your minds and say, what is swing? What is, I'm not going to say what is jazz because I don't even get into that. All right, so this gets to the next thing of rhythm, right? So it's important, and even Dexter said this, he says it's important to know what you're playing about, right? Know the lyrics to the songs. What are you playing about? Are you just playing notes? What are your intentions? What are we trying to do when we're improvising? And I'm trying to hurt people, or I'm trying to make people happy, or I'm trying to give them an escape, or I'm going on a search on my own and I want them to come along, or I want them to say, oh, I felt that way, or they're, symbiotic relationship, right? Lyrics, right? Lyrics. The importance of knowing the lyrics. As an instrumentalist, of course as a singer, what are you playing about? What are you singing about? It's always the worst thing, when someone says, calls the tune Just Friends, and you're like, just friends, yeah, lovers no more, so happy, just friends. It's a sad song, man. Why are people playing like that, I don't get it. So what are people thinking, to know something about what's happening with the lyrics. So then one of the next steps I'm taking is, with singers, is always with the metronome, always with the metronome. I'm trying to get them to come up with their idea of what the swing feel is. A lot of this, again, is going to sound, repetitive. Well, I don't need to know this stuff, whatever. But we need to solidify the fundamentals of everything we're doing. Without a solid foundation, we're going to have holes in what we're doing, right? So, whatever I decide that swing feel is, to me, I'm going to set up this grid, if you will, of swing underneath. And let's just take a song, the song we did last night, My One and Only Love. All right, so a double time feel, and I'm going to set up the grid. We have the bouncy feel, or laid back. Now I'm going to go through the tune, and I'm going to use the lyrics, maintaining the form. Okay? And again, this is a very helpful thing for drummers, but this is a great thing for singers. This is a great thing for anybody to start getting. You got all your splendor, my one and only. You got my one and only. The shadows fall and spread their misty charms. You got. Right now, I anticipated that one, right? So, as a drummer, man, you're solo, right? The shadows fall and spread their misty charm in the hush of night. You got me to when you're in my arms to do bomb bomb. You got the tune in your head, you got the lyrics down, and you're using that as a tool. But of course, you're adhering to the swing grid, right? How does this apply to horn players? I don't know how you would do that, and at the same time, except if you would do it verbally. Practice doing it verbally, getting those rhythms. Because again, all that's happening when we're playing is taking this information up here, and it's either coming out of here, 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 wherever. So if we get these concepts, it's mind, right? And the older you get, you're going to realize everything, it's just mind. Everything is mind. That may sound ridiculous, but it's all mind. How we conceptualize things, how we want to, someone is shown a concept and they're like, oh, it's really a difficult concept. Someone shows you a different way. I mean, it's just all mind, how we're thinking about things, how we're processing this information. So that last step, I think, is very vital. If I'm even taking the tempo up a little bit, does someone want to try it? Someone want to try it? I call it, rapping the tune or verbalizing the tune, but we're pushing things around, right? And again, this is my concept for things. I want to take this tune and I want to push it around rhythmically in an insane fashion, still knowing where I am in the form, because I want to take things to an extreme so that when I actually do the song, I can trim it down like a bonsai tree. And now I'm a little more contained, but I've experienced all of this rhythm in its extremes, but I also want to experience those rhythms because this is an art form that's about dialogue. right? You know, it's an improvisational art form with dialogue. If I don't have the capacity to rhythmically respond to somebody, to rhythmically do something, how am I going to rhythmically respond to somebody? How am I going to rhythmically throw out a concept to people, right? If I haven't mastered the myriad of possibilities of different rhythmic things for this particular song, right? And why are we starting with rhythm? We haven't even sung the song yet because it's better to feel good than it is to sound good. If it doesn't feel good, you know, without the notes, how can it feel good with the notes, right? So these songs should all feel good rhythmically without the notes before we even add notes to it. I mean, that's my vantage point. You know, there's many opinions. But I can also tell you that through my life of seeing clinics of masters, a lot of them have said the same thing. I could play good rhythms before I could play good notes, right? This is about, you know, and you know what? I would rather, because this is kind of a forgiving art form, right? In the sense of, especially singers, you know, I don't know if it relates so much to horn players, because no one wants to hear like a bad sound, period. But you can have a not so attractive voice, but if your feel is good, you're forgiven. If it feels good and you have good intention, do you mean what you say and does it feel good? You're forgiven, right? Because we want the feel good thing.
I think it's true on instruments too, although we don't want to teach that.
Right.
But
You know, we want good technique and we want.
through history of saxophone players who have not very pretty, at least in the traditional sense,
Right.
pretty sound,
Mm-hmm.
but they still contributed something great to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if I can, but I'm just saying that wouldn't be like something I'm just saying like in, you know, singers, someone's got maybe a more of a quirky voice. I mean, it applies to horns too, but of course we're trying to, you know, teach good technique, you know, all the time, you know. Does that make sense about the whole rhythmic thing? I mean, to me, that's like what it's about. It's a rhythmic-based art form. And the notes are secondary to me, you know. Of course we want that whole harmonic study and everything. But again, man, you know, I've just seen it time and time again. These cats who come, they want to study, and I'm wondering, first of all, why they're wanting to study with me, until I realize through their explanation that, because I'm a singer, right? Certainly there's somebody else that can teach them these concepts better than I can on their instrument. They're a great guitarist, or, you know, they're a great technician. But then it turns out they've got a disconnect, and the disconnect is from here to the instrument. They've transcribed a million things, but they're, you know, and then I get them to start singing what they're playing. And aha, okay. Because now you can't just, now you're playing what you're singing. You're not singing what you're playing, right? And that's a big difference, you know. You see a change go by, are you playing those certain notes because that the change says you're allowed to? Or are you singing what you hear inside your head, you know? Okay. Any questions? And then, we've done our homework. We've learned the changes. We've arpeggiated everything. We've learned the bass-melody relationship. You know, even if it's one finger. And there's like a concept, and I'm digressing just for 1 second. There's a concept that I have found useful for me, you know? And that's to know every concept in a fourfold fashion. That is to intellectually understand what I'm talking about. What is a tritone sub? You know, what is a major third? You know, this sounds simple, but to intellectually understand every concept, to be able to sing every concept, to be able to hear every concept, and to be able to play every concept on a chordal instrument. I don't care what you play. You should be able to do that. Sing. You don't have to have a good voice. You know, but you should be able to sing every concept, hear every concept, play every concept, and intellectually be able to describe that concept. I mean, we got to survive too, right? It's not just about playing. Probably most of us, if we choose a career in music, are going to have some students of some kind to help us survive. Shouldn't we know what we're talking about? Do we have to know all this information to be a great musician? No. Do we need to have these 4 concepts down to be a great musician? No. We don't need to intellectually be able to describe what's going on, to hear what's going on. But it sure is helpful. Do you have to be able to know how to read and write to be a human being? No, but it makes things a little more convenient, right? So we're able to read music. We're able to intellectually tell people what we want, musically makes things easier, right? So, hearing, singing, playing, however simple it is, few fingers on each hand, guitar or piano, and intellectual. I mean, those are the four concepts. Now, what did I digress from? I digress from knowing the changes and now applying the song, right? We haven't even got to singing the song or playing the song. So now with this whole thing of the comfort of having digested the changes by arpeggiating, by checking out the guide tones. Everyone knows what guide tones are in here, right? 7-3 motion, 3-7 motion, and it goes even further than that. Everyone knows the bass melody relationship of the song. Now it's time to apply the song to the changes, the melody to the changes. And we're free because rhythmically we've investigated all the possibilities that we can go to. So there's this comfort level, right? When do we feel comfortable as a musician? We feel, or as a human being doing any task, we feel comfortable if we've done something before, right? And the analogy I always like to give is like the high dive in the summertime, when you're a little kid and you go up in the high dive and you're scared and you do it, and then the next year you go up the high dive again, you're like, I'm scared, no, I did this before, right? Not only do we have the conscious saying that to us, but we also have the subconscious saying that to us. Psychologists and psychiatrists will tell you that. There's a conscious experience is something that can be reflected upon, right? And they can affect us as well. A dream can affect us, right? It's a conscious experience if we remember it. So what I'm saying is we've investigated rhythmically a myriad, every possible way we could go through things, and our subconscious tells us, I have the confidence to do this because I've done it before, right? So when we go to approach these things with melody, we can put things anywhere. Now, is there a piano player in here? I'm a piano player. A piano player in the house? No.
I'm the guitarist.
All right, well, then you're going to make me have to do it the hard way. All right, so my point is that then I'm going to take these things, and this isn't like a super foreign concept, but let's see. All right, forgive me while I just lay something down for myself. I'm not recording. That's good. I made some mistakes. Okay, so I kind of laid down something for like Blackbird, right? So, pack up all my cares and woes, here I go, singing low, now bye-bye. Bye-bye, Blackbird, where somebody waits for me, her sugar sweet, and so is she now. Bye-bye, 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 Blackbird. No one here can love or understand me. I'm going to go through this. This is what I'm talking about, going through things rhythmically. So when I go to sing the song, I can start pushing things around, anticipatory or, laying it back further, right? And I've studied the harmony that goes along with it, so I don't have a problem with understanding what notes I need to change if I am delaying things. Does that make sense? Okay, so. Here I go singing low, bye 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 bye, bye bye Blackbird, where somebody waits for me. You're sugar sweet and so is she. Now bye, bye blackbird. No one here can love or understand me. Oh no, what hard luck stories they are and me. No, don't make my bed, light the light. Don't you know that I'll arrive later on tonight singing, baby, bye bye blackbird, let go. Pack up all my cares and woes. Here I go singing low now, bye bye blackbird. Where somebody waits for me, the sugar sweet and so is she. Bye bye, bye bye blackbird. No one here can live or understand me. Oh, what hard luck stories they are and me. Oh, make my bed, light the light. Don't you know that I'll ride it around tonight singing, baby, 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 bye bye blackbird, bye bye. That type of thing, right? So I'm practicing pushing things around, right? So that's another reason why I kind of dig this tool, right? And but also you can go the other way, right? You can go, and I'll just do, I won't do the whole song, but so you can go. Right, we're back to the beginning, so I can practice my bass lines on it if I want to. Why would it be important to practice bass lines for anybody? What does the bass player do? I don't know, I'm not a bass player. Well, once you start checking that stuff out, you start realizing what their function is. It's not so easy. Well, what notes are you playing when you're walking? What's your job? My job is to lock in with the other rhythm section players. But this whole heightened awareness starts to come about, right? And your ears start to listen to different things. What is the bass player doing? Oh, what is the relationship between the bass player and the piano? When you're listening to records, are you honing in on the interaction between different instruments that are in the rhythm section that are not the soloist? You know, this underlying dialogue, aside from the obvious dialogue that's happening, right? The supportive dialogue, you know? So there's a number of, and also I kind of dig this because when I'm writing at the keyboard, instead of having some like 4-track recorder, okay, I'm ready to record now, here I go, and oh, okay. No, it's like, boom, I'm recording, right? I got my keyboard, it's going right through my mixer, I'm recording, okay? You know, I like taking this to the nth degree of because it's not just something that, you know, I like singing tunes with this, solo stuff. And I think it's kind of an exciting thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be for performance, right? But I like the loop because it, without having presets, you know, pre-programmed stuff on here, because it's live. You make a mistake, it's going to repeat over and over and over again. The wrong note, right? So there is that exciting element to it.
Danger.
Yeah, danger. And, you know, but there's some, so I've like thorough composed some things and that still have some leeway for improvisational things, and I'll just show you some things that aren't necessarily, things that I've done with it that aren't necessarily like the standard fare. This is, let's see. Let's see which one is on. Get some great sound here. Yeah. Do di so di do di di stum gung ding on ding ding yo. Ding gu di di stum gu di do on di di. Do hi do di stum git on ding ding yo. In ble di so di stum do di do on ding ding gu do di do on ding ding. Do gu di do go go. Briti sa de da gu go de do do da ba bri ba do ma do be de me ba do be de ma ba do be de go ba da ba di bo ba da ba fuera de ya da da ding da ding king. Do king go de do de disco don't ding go down ding ding. Do the lady disco dung gung de on ding ding go. Do the latest disco don't ding go down ding ding go. Do the lady disco do do don't. You can play the game and you can act out the parts, do-do-do. Although you can know it wasn't written for you, tell me How do you stand there with your broken heart? Doo-doo-doo. Ashamed of playing the fool. Go, go. One thing leads to another. Doo-doo. It doesn't take any sacrifice. So go, go. Father, mother, sister and brother, if it feels right, don't think twice. You just got to shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. You can run, but you cannot hide. This is widely known. Go. What you plan to do with your foolish pride? When you're all by yourself, all alone. Once you tell somebody the way that you feel, you can feel it beginning to ease. I guess it's true what they say about the squeaking wheels. Always getting the grease. So it's better to shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Shower the people you love with love. A little rain must fall, just like the pouring rain.
Shower the people you love,
love, the sunshine. Oh, let it rain.
Shower the people you love,
the sunshine. We sing di ba do di ba do do ba do ba do di ba do ba da ba we didn't down na do kin na do kin na do no kin na do no we sana do di ba do be ba do li go ba da ba pe do we sana na te don't gonna put it down. Sit it, salad, sit de ba do bo be de be say I got on fan ba don't gong down do gang so de bo do go bam ba na sit di da don't down ba we di da don't down ba. Show them the people you love with love, the sunshine. Oh no, things are gonna be much better if you only will.
There's some fun to be had, you know. Do some rock
soul tunes, some jazz tunes, some whatever, and I incorporate it as well with live jazz tunes that I play. If the band can hear it, it's great. You know, whatever particular loop is set up, it needs to be that way. But yeah, any questions about anything going on?
How about a hand for J.D. Walter?